Good morning. It is 11:02 on July 21st, 2022. This is Committee Meeting Enterprise and Utility Oversight Committee of the Whole. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Ms. Allard? Mr. Constant?
Here.
Mr. Cross?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Ms. LaFrance? Mr. Perez-Verdia? Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Ms. Quinn Davidson? Here. Mr. Rivera?
Present.
Mr. Salt?
Here.
Mr. Voland? And Ms. Zalatel? Thank you.
Thank you. I know for the record that Mr. Perez-Verdia and Ms. LaFrance, Mr. Vaughn, and Ms. Zalatel have all requested to be excused. And the first thing to do with this meeting is, since this is the first convening of government since the shooting last night at Centennial Park, I would like to express my sympathy to our APD officer who was shot in the line of duty and their family who's at the hospital addressing the recovery of this individual, and also to all of the people suffering at Bronson's camp at Centennial Park. Many of us are doing our best to figure out a path to get you out of there, out of the mud, away from the bears, and into a safe place for shelter and ultimately housing. With that, we'll turn to the agenda. Call the meeting to order. And now for new business, we have on the agenda today a briefing from Eklutna Hydroelectric, from AWWU on the status of the Girdwood Water Project, a briefing from the Port of Alaska on administrative building, and then there's our standing items. Are there any items to add to this agenda? Hearing none, we'll proceed through the agenda. I will hand the floor over to Ms. Haskett from Chugach Electric. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Julie Haskett with Chugach Electric, working on the Eklutna Hydroelectric project. On the phone is Samantha Owen, who many of you have met. I think all of you. She is our project. They're running the project for the owners with McMillan Jacobs, and then Mike Brody with me here from Chugach. He is running the project for Chugach. So Samantha she's on the phone in another state. She's going to go through the slides, and I'm going to advance them for her, and then we'll take your questions at the end. So Samantha, if you just want to get started and then tell me when to advance the slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Just real quick, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Then yeah, let's just go ahead and dive right in. First slide is the agenda. We're just going to be providing an update for you guys on all of our activities since the last time we spoke with you in February. And that includes the year 1 study reporting, year 2 study planning, our ongoing field work, and then a shameless plug about our recreation survey. And then we'll go through some next steps and take some questions. So next slide.
Yep.
Perfect. I think last time we met with you, we had just distributed the year 1 study reports and year 2 study plans for review and comment. We allowed a month for people to review and provide comments to us. I believe we received comments from most of our technical work group members and some of our other parties that aren't actually in the technical work groups. The primary comment primary substantive comment was talking about flows this year. I know that's been a big topic of discussion. So as you know, we did our study flow releases last fall with a high calibration flow of about 150 CFS. After reviewing the data that we collected last year, we did not propose doing a higher calibration flow this year because we felt that we had the data we needed to adequately study and evaluate different flow scenarios down the river, including potential base flows in the river, but also potential higher flows in the river for things like channel maintenance and things like that. One of the things we've definitely had a lot of discussion about is, kind of how much information is enough information. And so obviously with 150 CFS calibration flow, we will have more certainty around flows that are closer to that range and a little less certainty around higher flows, but we will still be able to study them. So the comments that we received around this were mostly about people requesting higher calibration flows and wanting to see a higher calibration flow go down the river in order to get more certainty around those higher flow scenarios in our models. Ultimately, we decided or did not recommend to the owners to do that higher calibration flow because we just don't see it as being necessary for long-term decision making, since we will be able to study those flows. So we had a series of technical work group meetings the week of March 21st to talk through all that stuff, both about the flows and also about all the other comments we received on all of our other studies, like the recreation study, the cultural resource study, our fisheries studies, water quality, all that great stuff. Had several discussions about that. And then we revised our study plans accordingly based on those comments received and redistributed on April 1st, the proposed final study plans to the parties for their concurrence. Maybe next slide. This is just a table showing you guys who is in each of our technical work groups, who's a party. Some people are in multiple technical work groups. Just a reminder, so we have the Native Village of Eklutna is included in all of our technical work groups. Alaska Department of Fish and Game is heavily involved. We have the Chugach State Park is being represented in the Recreation Technical Work Group. The State Office of History and Archaeology is in the Cultural Technical Work Group. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, National Marine Fisheries Service, obviously both in our Aquatics Technical Work Group and terrestrial. Trout Unlimited is being represented in Aquatics and Recreation. And then we have people from Alaska Pacific University participating in both the aquatics and terrestrial technical work groups. And many of those people are also parties. I will note that although the Native Village of Eklutna is not technically a party to the 1991 agreement, many of you know that the project owners have committed to a review and participation framework specifically for NVE. So that's why we got a little asterisk there next to the name. I'll also make another side note that although we have several state agencies represented across all of our technical work groups, technically the state itself is just one party. So I want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting that, but that it is clear. So next slide. Perfect.
Go
All right,
ahead,
so
Sim.
we did
You can
receive
assume I'm
concurrent-
advancing the slides.
Okay, great. We did receive concurrence from all of the state agencies on our study plan. The federal agencies concurred with 10 out of 12. So they reserved their concurrence on the in-stream flow and geomorphology study plans until they are able to review the modeling results later this year. So again, this goes back to the comments and discussion around, is a higher calibration flow needed? We have not been able to view the modeling results yet from last year's field effort because the models are still being developed, but we will be able to review those with the technical work groups here coming up in just a few months. So hopefully that will spark some more great discussion with our technical work groups and get us going in the right direction. We did also send the study plans over to AEA to see if they had any additional feedback for us. This is to fulfill one of the requirements of the 1991 agreement. AEA is acting as the governor's representative. They reviewed the study plans and did not have any additional feedback. And so all of that, everything that we developed over the past however many months, the year one study reports, year two study plans, all the comment letters received and all the concurrence letters received are all available on our project website on the documents page. The next slide here is just showing you guys a quick reminder of everything that's included in our year two study program. So again, that's geomorphology, in-stream flows, fish, and both the fish studies in both the river and the lake, water quality, continuing our stream gauging efforts. We're getting to start some fun engineering studies this year, looking at what would it take from a feasibility standpoint to make some of these potential mitigation measures happen. looking at, impacts to cost. That's the hydro evaluation study. And then also wetlands, wildlife, other terrestrial studies, recreation, cultural, and we also were able to go out and collect some new LiDAR data earlier this year. So as you know, the flows last year pushed a lot of the sediment through the river, had made some big geomorphological changes in the river. And so we had LiDAR data from 2020, and now we have new updated LiDAR from 2022. And we'll be able to compare those two data sets as part of our geomorphology study, and that's going to tell us a lot. Next slide is honestly just some fun photos of our guys out in the field this year doing a lot of that data collection. On the left, we're collecting some temperature data in the lake. And then on the right, we're installing some of the wildlife cameras next to the river. You can see a lot of beaver activity going on in that area. But we've also started our fish surveys this week, actually. No, I take that back. We started them a couple weeks ago. Those are being heavily coordinated with the native village of Eklutna. We've also been doing moose grouse surveys. We've done a few aerial avian surveys looking at raptors and shorebirds. We're continuing our modeling efforts, getting those models developed, and been doing some cultural surveys. And then if we go to the next slide, one of the fun studies we have going on this.
Samantha, just quickly, I would note for the record that Member Walland arrived at 11:12 a.m.
Oh,
Go
okay,
ahead.
great. Yep. On the next slide is our shameless plug for our recreation survey. If you guys go to you guys will be able to go to the website listed there on the bottom. It's eklutnahydro.com/rec study. And we're going to have two different ways for people to provide information about the recreation they have going on out at Eklutna. There'll be a survey like you see here, and it's just asking people questions about the type of recreation they're doing, where they're doing it, both at Eklutna Lake, but also out at the tail race in the lower river, just down at Thunderbird, just anywhere in the Eklutna area. And we've also got a really awesome interactive map where people can actually drop pins and draw lines and really show us on a map where they're doing that kind of recreation. So if you want to share this survey, we're going to be collecting information through October. We'll be posting flyers out at the different trailheads, and I think we're going to be sending letters to the different community councils, just trying to get the word out there. But we would obviously welcome you guys with helping us distribute this survey as widely as possible so we can get a bunch of really good data.
Samantha?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have a question about the survey. What's the purpose of the survey?
Sure. So the purpose of the survey is to really quantify how much recreation and what kind of recreation is going on in the area. One of the requirements of the 1991 agreement is that we evaluate how potential fish and wildlife measures might impact recreation in the area. And so in order to do that, we really need to quantify what recreation is happening first. So this is trying to get a good sense of how many people are recreating at different areas and what are they doing. So that when we start to look at those potential.
Is this going to be something that's kind of used in a analysis that says, well, if we do this, we're going to reduce opportunities for recreation at site X, Y, or Z?
Reduce or maybe potentially increase. Impacts could be positive or negative, right? But yeah, we're trying to make sure we have a very holistic analysis of what we would be proposing and what the impacts of that would be in the river.
Right, because
in the greater area.
You know, the part you can't survey is what recreational opportunities are not being taken advantage of because the water isn't flowing. And so when we get to the point where there is actual water flowing and fish have returned, therein lies a whole new opportunity. So hopefully I don't know how you kind of compare that to the survey, but I hope the survey isn't used to block future opportunities. Thanks.
Can I just add one thing for you, Assemblymember Constant?
Please.
If you read the 1991 Fish and Wildlife Agreement, there are 8 things that we have to consider for this mitigation plan, and recreation is one of those 8. So it's something that's required, as Samantha said.
Yeah, I get that. And depending on how it's framed, it either could induce future opportunities for recreation that don't exist, or it could be used to block them. So it's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. One of the things that we have discussed is that currently there is no public access to the Eklutna River. And you're right, it's hard to quantify what the potential positive recreation impact might be if say public access was allowed to the Eklutna River and people were allowed to go down there and recreate. So that's definitely discussions that we're going to have, but we are going to try and quantify what we can about what the existing recreational use is going on now.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah, and then next slide is just talking about some of our next steps. We're going to continue with our fieldwork efforts. We're going to continue with developing our models. And then, we have our series of technical work group meetings coming up in September, October, and November. And these are going to be to review those kind of in-stream flow, geomorphology, and other natural resource study results, so we can take that information and then say, okay, now what do we need to look at from a engineering perspective as far as potential PME measures? So it'll be that transition between natural resource studies to engineering studies.
This is Assemblywoman Allard. Can I just interject? I jumped on at 11:15. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to know. I don't have the chair's phone number. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
then
regular
that's
effect.
it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's it for me. And if anyone has any questions, be happy to answer them.
Looks like Mr. Dunbar wants to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I understand that a lot of these studies are still ongoing, so you don't have any definitive information. But I am sort of curious. To me, one of the key questions is, so it was 100. Is it BFS? Is that the right? CFS. Thank you.
CFS.
Right.
Yes.
Cubic feet for second. So it was 150 CFS, but one of the key questions is, what is the amount of water we need to have the fish return and make it all the way up to the lake, right? And so can you give us are you any closer to that answer now than you were a year ago? And can you give us sort of any indication of what the preliminary results might be?
I would say we are closer because we are getting closer and closer to finishing up our modeling effort. But those meetings we have scheduled through September, October, November timeframe are when we will be able to share those results with our technical work group. So I don't have numbers for you right now, but we're getting very close to being able to share them.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? So I think that'll conclude this presentation. I will let you folks know that next month we will probably hear from Eklutna, the native village of Eklutna, and the folks, Brad Micklejohn and the others who have been participating in the process. They were unable to participate today, so they asked if they could come next month. So that'll be on the agenda. And thank you for the presentation. Did you want to speak briefly about your annual report since you put it on the table?
Yeah, I just shamelessly gave you all a copy of the Chugach Electric's most recent annual report because we spent a lot of time putting it together, and here you all as my captive audience. So I just wanted you to have it and take home and read it. And so, yeah, that's what that's about. And I did want to mention that Mr. Micklejohn and NVE, they have all the information that you have today from this presentation. So there's nothing really new that we announced today. I did want to tell the Assembly, and Native Village already knows this, as does Mr. Micklejohn and others. There was a request, this whole discussion about flow studies and not doing them this year. And we had met with, and when I say we, I mean myself and Julie Esty from MEA. We met with Aaron Leggett of NVE. And Aaron specifically told us that seeing any amount of water is just a sign of respect to the Native Village and to the Eklutna people. And if there was any way to have any water this summer, even if for a day, that would be welcome. So one of the things that we've come up with that's unrelated to the studies, and we want to be super clear on that, is we put in a new gate last year at the dam for $300,000. And part of the O&M of that gate is opening it once a year to make sure it opens and never again gets closed by big boulders. So we have scheduled Friday, August 5th as the day we are going to open that gate for our operations and maintenance of our new gate. And there will be water flowing for about 18 hours, we anticipate. So we've put that out there so folks know to go see, if they want to go see water, that this operation and maintenance of this gate, which should be happening annually, will be a chance to see some water. I mean, until we get through this program and ultimately have a recommendation, but we're going to be operating that gate, keeping it working, so we never get in a situation again where we have to replace it. Hope that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's great. So
May I
since
ask
she
a
spoke,
question, Mr. Chair?
yeah, Ms. Gwen Davidson has the floor.
Oh, thank you. And then I think Forrest has a question too. So how does that one day of water relate to the requests that NVA has been making for years about the flushing flow? It's not enough, right, to clear out the sediment
No.
with one day. So the
Correct.
one day is just
When
to
we
make sure there aren't boulders by the gate.
Yeah, when we met with Aaron, he had said just seeing water is really impactful for us and very meaningful. And so we went back and talked about it. And even though the studies are not requiring or needing flows this summer, there will be an opportunity to exercise that gate to make sure it works, and there will be water. So we were trying to answer the Native Village's request for just being able to see water, even though it's unrelated to the studies. It's, we feel like we found a way to at least show water flowing down the river.
Yeah, and my sense of what they hope for is that there's more water, not just one day, but I guess
Sure.
we can hear from them
At
next
some
month.
point, yeah. But they know that we are in our
Mhm.
second year of studies and that we are getting that much closer to proposing a mitigation plan. And so, but because they've been involved since the beginning, they know that.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks, Julie.
And if I could just add, Julie, the flows that we did last year, referring to moving the sediment out from behind the lower dam site, even though that was not their intended purpose, right? We did those flows for our study purposes. I have personally walked the river since those flows, and I know others have as well. And I think we are all pretty amazed to see how much sediment was moved. I don't have an exact number for you, but I would go as far to guesstimate as about maybe 80% of the sediment that was behind the lower dam site was moved out from behind the lower dam site last year by our flow releases.
Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess two questions. The first is, how many hours do you have to keep the gate open? So I said two questions. First, is the gate sort of an on-off switch, or can you open it partially and release, a portion of the water? And then how long does the gate have to be open, or how wide does the gate have to be open so that water actually makes it down to where the people in the native village of Kaluna would see it, as opposed to just the first, whatever it is, a couple of miles or even a few hundred yards? That's my first question. My second question is, on August 5th, and maybe Julie, if you were willing to do this, maybe send an email to folks on the assembly and also to the native village of Kaluna. I think it would be great if we could go together and have like a time that we could go out there, a group of us, rather than everybody just kind of showing up on their own. And maybe we could mark the occasion a little bit, because this is something a lot of people have been working towards for years. And every time that gate is open and water starts to flow, I think it's a pretty momentous occasion.
So I'm going to ask Mike, would you come up here and answer
before you go-
the gate thing?
Yeah, before you go though, I would like to offer that I think that the request was made by Aaron, and I think that it was a symbolic request. And so I think that rather than ask Chugash to lead on that question, that we get a hold of Aaron and ask him what he would like to see for that day, and then work with Chugash to structure it in a way that's meaningful, so that if there is some form of symbolic element, it's done in alignment with what Aaron was really talking about. I think then that way it becomes more meaningful to them, and there's an opportunity for us to celebrate in some ways the thing. So I would suggest we collaborate with the Native Village as opposed to ask Chugash to do it top down.
And Native Village does already know, as does Trout Unlimited and Curtis McQueen, who's kind of been helping us navigate all these relationships. And there may be, we got them the date as soon as we could, so people can plan if they want to be out there, if you will.
And the chair has designated me the point of contact for now, and so I will take that on this week.
Mike, can you come up here and talk about the gate opening and how far it's going to be open and what you expect for the flows?
Go ahead and state your full name for the record.
Mike Brody with Chugach Electric. Been working on the project since we started it as kind of the project lead. The gate opening will, it occurs, we proposed opening it to what we call 20%. It's 20 CFS. With that, it would go 18 to, and it would trickle down after about 24 hours. I don't know if you guys have been up there, but there's a pond that's kind of lakeside of the dam. And this time of year, the reservoir lake is not connected to that pond. So we would basically drain that pond down, drop it about 8 feet, and that's where that water would come from. So we proposed 20 CFS, that's opening at a gate about 20% and letting that go because it would give them that opportunity to see it. We could open it right away and it's going to last for, a couple of hours. So that was kind of our limitation.
Okay. So it's not an all or nothing on off switch. You can open it partially.
Correct.
And doing this way, you're confident that it'll make it all the way down to Eklutna.
Well, what we proposed was for the Eklutna, that if they wanted to celebrate the water, there's a campground that they met at last year.
Yeah, we were
down
there.
there. And at that campground, it is, there's 2 bridges that where AWW has, and it's very visible there.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And didn't you say it would take about 2 hours to get to that place?
Once we open the gate at 20%, it takes 2 hours to get the upper bridge and then half an hour later to the lower bridge. So if that was something they wanted to visualize, that there was a dry bed and then see the water come down, that's available too.
Please, Ms. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last year, just for comparison, what percent was that? Because I saw that flow, so then I could, in my head.
So we went for about a month, and the very first week and a half was at 150 CFS,
Okay.
which was the gate was wide open. So it's significantly less, but
Okay.
it flows bank to bank. Well, what is bank to bank now under the bridge? There's a pretty good flow.
Okay,
I would say 20 CFS is roughly like Chester Creek.
got it. Thanks.
So do you imagine then, I heard it asserted, but I didn't hear it confirmed, that the water will make it down to the river at the mouth at that flow rate?
I don't have a good answer for that. We opened,
Maybe I can jump in on that one, Mike.
okay, this is Samantha.
Please.
Yeah, so the water will make it down, but as far as viewing it in the lower river, that's probably not going to be as impactful, only because in the lower river, you already have flows coming out of Thunderbird.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
so I know
okay.
flows coming out of,
It was more
Yeah.
along the lines of just the question of, is it actually going to make it? Not it. The ideal viewing is a different question, and that's a great point that's been made. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We got to move on. We got a couple more presentations. Yeah, thank you. So again, next meeting, we will come back to this question and have a post-flow conversation, which would be pretty good, I hope. And thank you. Next
Thank you.
on the agenda, we have our friends at AWWU. Oh, friend. Welcome, Mark.
Mark Corsentino, AUGM. Thank you. Mark Corsentino, AUGM. I don't have a presentation. I just have an update. The question was, when is Gertrude's water going to be fluoridated again? And we had met with GBOS and several folks over the last few months to let them know we're working on that. We let them know at the last meeting, June 20th, when we met with them, that we expected to be on July 1st. We did turn it on July 1st, so it is on. We are slowly ramping it up to its optimal target level, which is 0.7. We're there. We are actually going to send out a letter to notify them. We want to keep it running for several weeks to a month to make sure it was going to meet those target criteria, and it is thus far. So that's it.
Well, that's a pretty good briefing. Brief and briefing. Questions? Mr. Dunbar.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was very brief briefing, and I was distracted for most of it. So the last time we spoke about fluoridation of water in Girdwood, my impression was that it was going to be off for quite some time, and then the long-term solution was sort of maybe even years out.
Yeah.
Is that still the case? And again, could you say when is it going to be turned back on?
So it's changed. We took community feedback and they wanted it. So at least that's what we interpreted. So we took the extra effort and money to spend time rehabbing what we have there now to get it online. So it is online. and it is producing fluoride. There is a longer term project to make sure it's more reliable and sustainable. That is about 2 years out before that's complete, and that'll be a couple $100,000 to get that up replaced and upgraded.
And you probably said this in the very beginning. I just missed it. So when did it get turned back on? How long has it been back on?
Yeah, it's July 1st, which we told the community we would target that date. We got it. But it wasn't meeting optimal levels at that point. It took a while to ramp it up, and so we've met that at this point in time, and for probably a week or two. And so we're going to just send a letter to those folks in the community, let them know that they're back on. And we put it out there. Our website has a daily. If folks ever want to know, our website has fluoride status, whether it's on, off for maintenance or whatnot, on our website for both Girdwood and Anchorage.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This isn't about Girdwood, and I hope it's not too sensitive, but
It's fluoride, it probably is, but just.
yeah, I know. After the mayor ordered it shut down and then it came back on, there was a talk at that time of the reason for the shutdown was because employees were so concerned over the toxicity of fluoride, but we haven't heard anything about that since the mayor shut it off and put it back on. What is the status? Or is there some, I mean, presumably if it was that bad, they would be really pursuing something right now.
No, I think as always is the case, chemicals have an inherent risk to them. We follow OSHA, but there's still an inherent risk and people are concerned about it. But at the end of the day, they have all the PPE, they follow OSHA guidelines, but it's like anything in this world, it can still be a risk or perceived risk. And but at the end of the day, they're doing their jobs and they're able to safely complete their jobs.
Mr. Dunbar.
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that then? So have we received any OSHA complaints or violations around fluoride at that facility? And has there been any concern expressed by the union about the working conditions at that
Not that
facility?
I'm aware of.
So I'm going to assume that those complaints were real. My question is, do we have any mitigation plans that are in development that will be structural that could eliminate the potentials? I know there's some positive pressure in place, but surely we could do more if there were real and germane concerns.
There is a project to rehab that entire system in the near future, and we can address it at that point in time.
Okay, so you're working on it.
That's right.
Okay, well, that is sufficient for me. Anyone else? Hearing, seeing none. Briefing. Thank you, Mr. Corsentino. Next up on the agenda, we have our friends from the Port of Alaska to talk about their administration building project. Mr. Rebuffo, you have the floor.
I can't get the chair to rise, so don't laugh at me.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all again. Is it on? Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all again. I'm David Ames from Jacobs Engineering, the PAMP program manager. I'm here to brief you all on a proposed change requested by the port for the for the administration building project, the new administration building. This document, I do apologize. It is written to be prepared to be read aside as well. If you need to take it, it has all the information it needs, but I will be brief in the presentation. The general proposal is to enclose and heat the garage that is currently designed as an open ground floor of the administration building. When we demolish, the new proposal is based on the fact that when we demolish the existing building, we will lose the space, the warehouse space that is used to support the Army in their 2 to 4 per year deployments. Warehouse space used to screen cruise ship passengers, screen dignitaries and visitors to Navy vessels and other vessels. Office space and protected area for media events, and overflow areas for large visitor events when the area on the roof is not sufficient. The recommendation, as I say, that area down below that on the ground floor is designed as an open garage right now. It was designed to open in an effort to minimize the cost of the building as much as possible. The proposed change is to enclose and heat the ground floor to restore some of the services that are lost that I just mentioned. And as I said, it was originally the enclosure was not included in an effort to lower the overall costs, but with other design changes, we've been able to reduce the overall cost of the building significantly. Enclosure can now be reconsidered within the original budget, which will improve the utility flexibility and value of the facility. Total enclosed area, it would be approximately 5,500 square feet, which is more than adequate to provide the services that the port expects to accommodate there. There's no real estate available near the docks to build another facility to do that, and doing so would cost a minimum of about $2.5 million. The total cost of the proposed change is $1.075 million, bringing the total contract value to $9.4 million plus 10% contingency, which is within the program budget for the new building. Yeah, sure.
Mr. Dunbar?
Sorry, I can wait till the end of the presentation.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the enclosed facility improves safety and comfort of the facility users as well. And as I said, it's within the originally budgeted amount for the building. So that's I'll take questions now.
Mr. Dunbar, and then Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, I appreciate this presentation, but I'm a little confused by it. So maybe could you simplify it in sort of plain English, just a couple sentences? Are you saying that basically the plan now is to use a yet to be constructed garage for this purpose, or there is a garage and you're going to temporarily use it while you knock down part of the administration building?
This would be in the new building.
Okay.
Right now, it would be enclosing the currently designed as open parking facility so that when other needs besides parking are necessary, we can shift parking outside and use that enclosed area for these other uses in the new building.
Great. So in the interim so I guess my other question should be, are we going to build the new building before we knock down the old one? Or-
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So,
good to know.
yeah, until we cut the ribbon on a new building, we can continue to support all these activities in the existing facility.
Okay, thank you.
There's no gap.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so we've got a more than 5,000 square foot building. So, I mean, is this one story building or two stories?
Nope.
I'll move back.
It's 3 stories.
3 stories.
Well, 3 stories if you count the parking garage as the first floor. And then it's the second floor, which is the office space. And the third floor is a combination of office space and walkout observation deck.
Okay. Yeah, that keeps the footprint a little lower because if it was just one story, you'd need
Yeah.
100 feet by 50 feet at least. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's going to be part of the challenge because I know, not so much, it's not so much a motivation for the assembly, but I know the 8th floor occasionally likes to have events down at the port. And so the 3rd floor is there to support that, but there's fire codes that we have to consider. And if the group gets larger than I think about 50,
Yes. I think
yeah,
that's about
then you can't have everybody up there at the same time. So you need a plan B. And hanging out in our office space is a lousy plan B.
I see. All right.
This is effectively we're taking a space intended only for parking and enclosing it and heating it to turn it into a more useful space.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you.
So I have a couple questions, and I would rebut the statement that it is of more interest to the 8th floor than this body for having events of
But
interest.
you guys have never asked us to have an event there.
I have
In my
participated
history.
in a number of events out there,
Yeah.
and really always
Then I'll
appreciate
stand corrected.
the opportunity. So, but now that I know, it's on my list. But really, in all seriousness, two questions. The location of this, we're putting it right on the dirt, right? We're not doing it on the dock anymore.
No, we will no longer have administrative offices on the dock. We will be locating the facility where we have, do you know where our sand tent is? That half dome
Yeah.
canvas structure? Yeah, we're going to demolish and move the sand tent to a new location on the port and put the administration building there. It will be close enough to the dock operations, but it won't be on the dock.
Right.
I think one of the big lessons learned from this whole experience for us has been the best real estate you could ever want to lease out is right in front of the wall, right in front of the wharf. It's not a good place to put your office building.
Right.
So we're stepping back close enough to be able to observe what's going on the marine terminals, but not to interfere with the operation.
So gets to my main question. These doors or this walls that you're putting up on the structure, are they going to allow for some indoor outdoor environment where you could lift doors, or are they going to be permanent?
There'll be 2 roll-up doors on both sides.
Okay.
So, and the building is going to be cantered. Is that a right term? Where when the garage doors are open, you can see what's going on.
That's correct.
Okay.
In the
that's-
terminal
That's
area.
good. So that adds value to that
Yes.
alternative use rather than being
Exactly.
in a cave. Okay. And just to restate what I think I heard is that the original cost was value engineered down, and now this addition brings it still back within the original cost
Yes.
of the plan. So while there is some additional expense, it doesn't move past what we had originally proposed.
Correct. And if you think back several years, the first time we estimated the cost of this was at 15 million.
Right.
So we've designed it down and made some further changes to get it under 10.
Which is hard to imagine in the current climate with purchasing of equipment and materials and supplies, but let's make it happen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Hearing and seeing none, I think you two now are off the hook.
I just want this, we're going to try and tee this up for your your August 23rd assembly meeting if the timing works for the
yes.
paperwork.
Oh, the request for this. What
Yes.
resolution, I assume, or memorandum? What will the format be?
I don't know how to answer.
We'll
that.
put in a recommendation for a change order authorization increase for the
Memo.
contract. It'll be a memo, right? It'll be an assembly memo, and it will be, we'll get it in, I think the date is the 12th, to get it in for the 23rd. And that's all to be able to make this change to the design build contract before they start construction of the current.
So a note to
Design.
any department heads who might be listening. It is always good to brief the body well before you have an item on the agenda if you would like expeditious passage of your item, because now we understand the nature of the project. So when it comes before us, there will be many fewer questions. So to whomever might be listening, it's wise to use the tool of engaging with the assembly to meet your goals. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Any items we have? The stormwater utility update's dead for now. Legislative priorities, we don't have that conversation going on right now. I don't anticipate we kick that off until October. Any budget item discussions? Nope. So next we'll open up for audience participation if any members of the public wish to be heard. Mr. Dunbar, you are not a member of the public, but you can be heard.
No, Dan, did you come here for any particular reason? Do you want to tell us anything?
Oh, no, I just wanted to introduce my new recycling coordinator. I thought I'd do it after the meeting.
Oh, it's-
Since you're asking now.
Is she willing to come and just say hi to us?
Come on up, both of you. Mr. Zapay, you have the floor.
Anyway, we've been searching for a recycling coordinator since Susanna Caldwell left us, and after a long sought-out worldwide search from Chugiak, we found Ms. Toth, and she just started last Monday, and she'll have some interaction with all you folks as she moves along here. There's a big learning curve to go through, but she's
All right.
going to be
Welcome aboard, and you want to
yeah.
introduce yourself? There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Assembly, my name is Kelly Toth. I live in the Chugiak area. I was born here in Anchorage, and I really look forward to engaging with each of you to be able to raise the bar with the recycling coordination effort here in Anchorage.
Mr. Dunbar.
Two questions. First, what can you give us a little bit about your background before here? And then second, and I know this won't happen anytime soon, but I believe SWS has halted the recycling program at East High School, which was very popular and perhaps too popular because a lot of things were being left there. Is there any way that we can get that restored? This might be a little early in your tenure to.
That seems like a trap question,
Might
but
be a Dan Zapay question.
the first question for sure is germane, and please let us know a little bit about you, and then we'll come back to the East High question shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar, through the chair. I was born and raised here in Anchorage. I graduated from the University of Alaska Anchorage through the marketing program, and I've done marketing for various agencies, including the Downtown Partnership and a few private businesses here. And that's pretty much, I think, what is germane to my.
Background.
Oh, okay. I also worked for the Department of Natural Resources, and I oversaw the Kids Don't Float program for the state of Alaska and worked with many agencies. I've traveled all throughout Alaska, working through with many different agencies and statewide.
When were you with ADP?
Mr. Chairman, I was with the Downtown Partnership back when, what year was that? The late 90s.
Was that Beck, CEO? What was her name? Becky Beck?
It was Rod Flager.
Okay, Rod. Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions? Well, I'd like to be the first from the assembly to welcome you aboard, and it is a priority of ours, recycling and also the organics and all these other projects that are emerging concerns and interests. Recycling is not really emerging, been around a long time, but it's important to us. So thank you and welcome aboard. Mr. Zapay, thanks for bringing her. And then the other question, the East High, sorry, Dan, can't run away.
I guess this question is more for Dan, and I kind of know why it was shut down, but can you maybe explain to folks that might not realize it has been closed, and then is there any prospect of having it reopened in the future?
Mr. Dunbar, we're trying to, we closed it down because, that it just became another transfer station for us. We had to send crews out to clean it up at least every other day. The East High maintenance facility people asked us if we could remove our stuff because it was such a nuisance to them. So we put up, of course, we moved the dumpsters in the trailers and put up signs to reflecting that they could come to the recycling center at West Rock. And then when our new facility opens, hopefully the West Rock's going to move to the facility we're now, and it'll accommodate everybody to bring stuff there. I think it was good that we closed it down. And then if we do open it back up with the approval of the school district, we might try that again. But it just became a big nuisance, cost us some money.
And what you told me was that people were dropping couches and refrigerators and stuff there.
Yeah, they're dropping couches, beds. Yeah,
it's unfortunate. But I do think it shows a real pent up demand. I mean, East Anchorage is the most densely populated part of the city, and transfer station is a little bit of a hike. It's a little bit of a ways away from Muldoon, for example. Now, of course, you could go out to the landfill, I suppose. But people, I don't know how often people do that for recycling from East Anchorage. But is there any other kind of place other than the school district, or maybe we could find an East Anchorage location to do this?
That's be something that Kelly can work on. Yeah.
So,
we still have trailers at Bartlett West.
Oh, there's still one at Bartlett.
Yes,
okay.
And it's still being used. And of course, we don't. The traffic is not as the public doesn't see it as a dump site for other things. So
I can speak briefly before I let Ms. Quinn-Davids go that Alpar had for a long time a site for recycling set up at Cars on Gamble behind there in their parking lot. And it became, in the end, just an absolute disaster. And it took 3 years after they shut it down to decondition people to just bring out everything they wanted to dump. And so it really did become an alternative to the transfer station. And so I don't know that anybody in that small neighborhood really regrets it going away. And so an alternative theory might work, but I would say in a lot of places, these things just turned into really awful repositories of waste.
Yeah.
Ms. Quinn Davidson.
It seems like if it's in a high traffic area, it's sometimes better, but east is, I mean, you just pull in there and dump that stuff right off. There's no camera system or anything to keep everybody honest.
Cameras don't really work. Austin.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering what's going on with glass, and this might be too early for you two, I don't know, but for either of you, it sounds like the central repository, I'm forgetting the name, isn't processing it right now. So are we collecting glass still? But then what are we doing with it, and sort of what's the outlook for that program?
We're still collecting glass right now. We're still recycling. It's coming to West Rock, and then we have our own glass recycling program. We're taking it, stockpiling at the landfill. And as we get a better, we've been using some for bedding out there for piping and stuff. And if the CEI doesn't start processing again for us, we'll probably have to get our own crusher and crush it ourselves.
Okay.
And then we'll utilize it in any kind of construction projects that we have through the city that can use any kind of bedding sand.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So why isn't the other entity that usually processes it operating? What's going on with them?
They were making, our deal with CEI was they were processing some alt cover for us.
Uh-huh.
And now that we've got new systems out at the landfill with our tarping system and stuff, the alt cover became kind of not needed. And they were bringing like 175 tons a day to us, which is a huge cost to the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked them if they would quit bringing that, and they kind of just cut us off from the glass recycling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so we don't expect that to necessarily change then. We'll
That's-
probably be doing it ourselves.
We're in the process now of trying to maybe negotiate another
Okay.
system with them that will work, and they'll start recycling the glass. But it's something that we can handle right now. And a little glass crusher is not that much to the expense isn't that big
Okay.
to.
And of course, that's because we don't even do glass collection, right? So we don't have much. Like my wife and I take it to West High School, but I imagine most people just throw it in the trash at this point. So
The glass collection at West Rock is unbelievable. We have 7 dumpsters, and we dump them every morning. So there's a
Wow.
there's a lot of recycling of glass. Yeah.
well, you probably got
it's
a lot
big
of
program, and
recyclers on the west side.
that's one of the recycling programs that I like is glass,
Demographics.
because it can be used in different areas of,
Yeah.
of material. It makes good bedding sand, it makes good driveway fill. Yeah, it works good.
Great. Can I just ask one more quick?
On that topic though, downtown you had for a while a glass recycling actual collection program. Is that still operating?
Yes, and that's what she's going to work on. We're going to bang the downtown district for getting more glass recycling.
Yeah, because certainly I understood it as a benchmark project where we could analyze how it would work for the rest of the city and how we could implement
Yes.
a more aggressive collection program.
We're definitely going to work on that. Yeah, because I think before I came on board, I think Susanna worked on it, and they talked to downtown, and they just said it wasn't worth for their bartender and stuff to separate the glass. So we're going to work on that program.
All right, Ms.
Sounds like
Davidson.
some marketing will help with that.
Yeah.
Sounds like an attitude rather than a problem.
There you go.
Can I just ask, so related to that, so downtown had glass pickup, but doesn't
Has.
now?
No,
Has.
They still do.
Oh, you all are
it's
so lucky.
It's volunteer. It's volunteer, if they
Okay.
want to do it. It's just
Yeah.
that everybody should probably do it.
And I have Alaska Waste because I'm just on the other side, on the west side. So they don't pick up glass, but does SWS only in downtown right now? Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes, it's glass collection sites like we had, and then West Rock takes a lot of it. And
okay. And so eventually is the plan to try to get collection around wherever
Yes.
the
Yes.
jurisdiction is? I know it's not everywhere in the city, but okay. Great. Thank you both. Welcome.
All right, at this point, we've already done our audience participation request. We've had a final briefing by.
Can I,
Is that Kevin?
sorry, can I make an audience comment?
Who is this?
Thank you.
Oh,
Sorry, it's Mike
yeah,
Edgington here
okay.
from Girdwood Board of Supervisors.
Sure, we'll go back
yeah, I just
to
wanted to
audience
say,
participation. And Mike, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I won't take that long. I just wanted to say I was very critical when Girdwood discovered, kind of almost incidentally, that we had no fluoride in our water system. I was pretty critical of the lack of communication from AWU. I just want to commend what an outstanding job Mark and his team have done since about communicating the status and liaising with both GBOS and the community. It's been, I take back some of my criticism, I suppose, but it has been very positive. So I just wanted to put on the record a thank you to the team.
That is acknowledged, Mike. Mark is not here. I'll let him know. And I'm glad that Girdwood stood up for itself in demanding that the utility adheres to the municipal code.
Thank you.
All right, hearing and seeing no other members of the public, this meeting is now adjourned.